You, dear listener, can apply your critical thinking skills to understand in which direction are we heading. Whither goest, St. Vincent and the Grenadines? You've heard the election, they're already talking about further transformation of the infrastructural landscape of this country, not of the quality of life of the individual. We're not paying attention to that because that is not what will get us elected. Everybody tells you education doesn't sell. What sells is gossip, political charlatanism. It is what has our society today so hung up on the colors that we wear. We have to show loyalty to the party because that allows you to own not just the country, but the jobs. That's what we have done to our nation. Identification with a political party is enough to determine your economic fortunes in this country. You see, we are into election 2020 mode. And how did we begin? Party, 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 party. Because there's a belief by the leadership that is all Vincentians understand. When is the next party? Where it is? Tell me when to come out decked in red. I'll be there because that gives me my livelihood. If you're not with us, you are deemed to be against us. You see, analysis of some of the actions and programs of the Unity Labour Party administration may well have been done without consultation with its own membership, seemingly out of fear that they may either not be understood, appreciated, or downright rejected. From the very beginning of their reign, the ULP administration appeared eager to give the impression in this country of wanting to establish a consultative democracy. Remember we were told about that, you know. That's a concept you don't hear about anymore. Why? Because perhaps it was never really intended. It was one of those nice-sounding initiatives, one of those nice-sounding phrases intended to garner votes. You see, during the political campaign of 2001, the production of the so-called contract with civil society. You remember that? That you don't hear about that again either, right? Contract with civil society was presented as serving the aforementioned intention, establishing a consultative democracy. Following victory at the polls in 2001, the document, the social contract or the contract with civil society, was again hoisted aloft. What was never clear, even as they held the document aloft, what was never clear was who was its author. Yeah? The fact that it was paraded without any definitive author being named suggested to many, rightly or wrongly, that like so much of the written work of the party, it may have been authored by Ralph Gonsalves, the head of the party. You see, one of the things that has happened is that there is this seeming mystique that only one person could do it. Only one person could do it. And one wonders whether the new strategy is only one person and his family could do it. Only one person and his family could do it. So you know the ad on television about liberty, liberty, liberty? Only pay for what you need. Only pay for what you need. And so there is a sense in which in St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the political arena, only one person could do it. Only one person could do it. He alone could do it. Now it's he and his son could do it. He and his son could do it. He and his family could do it. Only they could do it. And so there is the makings of the dynasty. Only he and his son could do it. And you have to laugh because now we're hearing of the transformation of Kariako. Really, the transformation of that part of the country, East St. George. Yeah? So, the North Windward constituency get the big clinic and undergoing significant transformation. Now East St. George is undergoing significant transformation. And the parliamentary representatives are the ones on the political platform extolling those achievements. They sit down and they ask, well, what did Cess do in West St. George that he could talk about? What has Saboto done in his constituency that he can talk about? What can some of the others talk about in the way in which father and son can speak about on the political platforms? There seems a disparity as to who within the organizations possess the capacity and the authority to speak on some of these things and to have them done in their respective constituencies. The others seem to have to wait until benevolence kicks in order to facilitate their having something to talk about. But where are the people? Where are the masses? Where is the consultative democracy that we were told was emanating from the contract with civil society? You see, the left, the ruminants of the left and the leftovers once thought that the odd thing was going to be their conduit to being among the leaders of that new consultative democracy. They're all still lying prostrate before Papa. All those leftovers and ruminants of the left. They're still holding fast, hoping that enough will fall from the master's table to give them sustenance. Once in office, dear friends, the idea of the establishment of a consultative democracy in this country quickly receded. Once in office. Today, mention is not made in government or in party circles of any intention to transform St. Vincent and the Grenadines into a consultative democracy. This is not dissimilar from the priority established and enunciated on all political platforms and in the manifesto of the ULP in 2001 about the introduction of integrity legislation. We were to deal with white-collar criminality. But instead, we've gone in another direction. Those were fanciful terms, concepts, intended purely to acquire votes to win an election. Nothing more. Vincentians are only now waking up to that reality. That there was never any intention, really, to introduce a consultative democracy and to introduce integrity legislation. We like it so. Like Calypso says, we like it so. In hindsight, it appears that the approach of talking about a consultative democracy was intended to be one of the party's political strategy for the elections. Founded on the assumption that Vincentians only pay attention to things for about 9 days or so, after which the matter is all forgotten. After which the matter is all forgotten. 9-day wonder. And the politicians seem to believe in that principle. You see, the aforementioned strategy appeared to have once more proven successful in respect of the 2001 ULP manifesto of a promise to introduce integrity legislation in this country. And we all recall Vincent Beach, the late Vincent Beach. One platform to another. And we promise you, within the first 100 days we'll introduce integrity legislation. Well, Beach dead and gone, and integrity legislation still nowhere there. He died last year. The party was in office 18 years and more. And even he couldn't bring himself to be talking anymore about integrity legislation. He may have recognized that at the end of the day he was out there saying something that no one ever intended to implement. Now we can put alongside that the promise of a consultative democracy. We can lay to rest next to that the promise of a cross-country road. You see, we can talk all these fanciful things on one political platform after another because they sound nice. And they're designed to give us votes. Especially when you have that sickly, you like it? Poor Vincent Beach. No one ever seemed to have told him that the leadership of both the party and the government may well have had other ideas. He died in 2019, 18 years after the ULP came to office. He never had the pleasure of seeing any documentation on integrity legislation brought by his party, his own government, to Parliament. since they took office. Because he says, we had brought something before, but they didn't want it. But we promise you within the first 100 days. 9 days after the ULP took office, it appears that not even Vincent Beach could have brought to mind, let alone advocate, as he had done on the election platform, for his own party and his own government to address the matter of integrity legislation. Perhaps Vincent had finally come to the realization that despite being accommodated by the ULP government as Minister of National Security, he may well have still been perceived by the party's leadership as little more than a coconut bat, a term once used to characterize him. He could not impact change. And it may well be that the MNU leadership that eventually took over control of what was once Labour bring a 3% to a coalition and eventually becomes the dominant force of the party, may well have recognized that there was a major coup that had taken place. Vincent had been perceived as a poor political leader of the St. Vincent Labour Party. He lost in the internal elections to Stanley Storky Drun, but had the last laugh when those who brought the 3% MNU together with the St. Vincent Labour Party elevated him to head the organization, perhaps knowing that ultimately, Gonzalez will be in charge. Some must have seen it coming. And certainly we did here at Just Another Look, much to the chagrin of the comrade. We knew, and we said that is what was going to happen. It was a clear understanding. Storky got left out in the cold and then thrown out in the cold along with Ken Boy. But the third person of that triumvirate, that was Raising Cane, got a package that he couldn't refuse and still doesn't refuse. The old people say God don't sleep. So we have an understanding of how the politics is practiced. Ultimately, political parties are formed to get hold of the reins of governance, nothing else. They come and they tell you all the good things they want to do for you, but essentially all they really want is to get hold of the reins of governance. And so it is not surprising of the things they say. When they get into office, what they do is the proof of the pudding. And sometimes you can't eat the pudding. So it is that we are now in 2020, 19 years after the ULP came to office, with a commitment to introduce integrity legislation. But it is notably off the table. The opposition New Democratic Party, which itself brought a rather lengthy proposal on integrity legislation to the House of Assembly in the early years of ULP government, appears to have fallen prey to the same blight of a 9-day wonder as normative in Vincentian society. The party has not done enough to keep the matter of integrity and integrity legislation in the forefront of national politics through the years. And that's disturbing. But remember, at the beginning of the program, we addressed the issue of the loss of our soul. The lack or loss of morality and of ethical standards. It seems pervasive in this society. So after 19 years in opposition, even the New Democratic Party has failed to keep in the forefront of people's consciousness the issue of integrity in public office, the issue of integrity legislation. Particularly disturbing, dear friends, is the fact that in this country, the legal fraternity itself, fragmented along party lines, has not seen it fit to keep the matter of integrity legislation in the public domain. It does not even feature really in the law and you. Interestingly, and certainly disappointingly, integrity legislation has not featured in any of the ULP's conventions since the party took hold of the reins of government in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Integrity legislation seems to have fallen completely off the radar. Today, dear friends, marks 4,775 days since the disappearance of J8VAX. That plane disappeared with Dominic Gonzalez, the pilot, and Rashid Ibrahim on the 19th of November 2006, a Sunday afternoon, going into evening. It also marks today, the first day of February 2020, marks 3,465 days since the disappearance of another SVG aircraft, J8SXY, piloted by Suresh Lakram. We always remember these people, if only because of our own dissatisfaction with the reports that were presented on the disappearance of these two aircraft. And finally, dear friends, as always, a reminder that on the 19th of September 2008, that is 12 years ago, going to be 12 years this year, Patricia Bowman, on her way to work, was crushed in her car. Our society, Vincentian society, we said at the beginning of this program, has lost its soul. We don't care. If we cared enough, we'd have compelled the government to do what is right and to ensure that justice was done in the case of the gruesome death of Patricia Bowman. Nearly 12 years on, and her husband is left last man standing with the pain of his wife's death and the failure of our country, the failure of our people, the failure of our leadership to have the matter adequately addressed. How far are we willing to go for justice? Is justice really blind? Or it is a matter of the law and you? Enough said. You've been listening to another edition of Nice Radio's Callaloo presentation, Just Another Look. Just Another Look is an innovative, exciting, albeit decidedly provocative, and yes, certainly controversial, socio-political analysis of issues of a local, regional, and international nature. Just Another Look is only on Nice Radio, first aired on Saturdays at 6 p.m., repeated on Sundays at 9 p.m. Remember, you can catch us on the World Wide Web, www.niceradio.info. You can check out our Just Another Look blog, www.justanotherlook.com, and you can catch us on YouTube. I am, of course, Keith Joseph.